At a marketing company, their turnover rate for clients was 50%, which is unacceptable. I feel like I've always been coaching. Ultimately, what are you looking for? Now, the Gen Zers, they won't do anything. I want them out of my office.
Now, were you only doing it in the software or were you doing it structure, who they were hiring?
No, that's what it morphed into. Yeah. So I started with just automation. And then eventually it morphed into companies going, how were you so successful? And what can you help me do to be successful in these other businesses? Mm-hmm. And so then I started coaching on leadership and looking at their business and all these things. So I had a marketing company that was 9 years in the making. They were stuck at $1.6 million. And I came in as the consultant and basically realized a couple of things right off the bat. One was their turnover rate for clients, or how long they kept them on was 50%. So for every 2 new clients they hire, 1 would go away, which is unacceptable. How long they kept them on was 50%. I started asking the account directors, and they were small at the time, 18 people, 5 account directors. And I said, so tell me 2 personal things about every one of your clients. And they couldn't do it.
They didn't know. Oh, wow.
Because they were checking boxes, not creating relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And so I told them, I go, look, by next month, I want to know 2 to 3 personal things about every one of your clients. And they said, like what? And I said, you start every conversation with, hey, how was your day? It'd be like, hey, Kevin, what did you do this weekend? Or what are you going to do this weekend? We're talking on a Thursday right now. What are you going to do this weekend? Right. And learn about them.
Yes.
Do they have kids? Do they like to mountain bike? Do they like to walk? Sports, whatever. Because now you're building a relationship. Well, we took the retention rate from 50% to 93% just by doing that.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just one of those things that you need to do. So, sorry, long-winded story about how I got to coaching, but I feel like I've always been coaching, right? And teaching people how to be better at what they do. But 2020 was kind of the turning point. We all kind of looked in the mirror a little bit during COVID. And I just turned 60 and I said, well, what's your plans, buddy? And I said, well, I'm not going to retire anytime soon because I don't feel 60. I don't know if I look 60, but my dad told me, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it, meaning your brain. And so I like to always be working and all that. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to help people and companies grow and be the best they can be. I said, okay, there's your mission statement. Help as many companies and people as possible grow and be the best they can be. How are you going to do that? And I said, well, as a consultant, I only can work with 1 company at a time. I probably could do 2, but it gets tough. You got to kind of compartmentalize.
You got to be in there. You got to be in it. Yeah.
So I said, well, if I coach, I can help many more companies. Basically, I created Pull the Chute from a skydiving event that I did. So you think about a parachute, right? So I went 14,000 feet up in a plane. And it was when I was 40, by the way. It was a bucket list thing. And I thought, I'm 40, do it while I still can, because I don't know.
When you were 40, you said?
Yeah. So you go 14,000 feet up in a plane, you tumble out, you're falling at 120 miles an hour. The first thing you realize, it's hard to breathe. One little movement of your hand, you're spinning out of control. Everything's happening so fast, you can't see where you're at and you can't see where you're going. But at 5,500 feet, you pull the chute. And suddenly you can breathe, you're in control, you can see where you're at and see where you want to go. And as I tell people, isn't that a lot like being in business?
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like you need to take a breath, like you need to feel in control to see where you're at and see where you want to go. And that's what I provide. So once a week we meet for an hour and we pull the chute. And I let them vent and I, find out where their struggles are and we talk through things and we lay plans out. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a blast. And, I have certain philosophies that I've learned over the years that I try to instill into them. And I never really tell them what to do, but I question, if I don't agree with something, I'll question and ask them why they think that's the way to go. And have they ever thought about this or that?
Now, are you typically dealing with the C-suite people in those companies, or who are you, or is it large groups? How are you typically coaching?
Yeah, so it's both. I do SMBs is more of a business coaching. So we look at marketing, systems, sales, finance, and people. And then in the last year and a half, we've really kind of developed this whole leadership development program, which is C-suite. The goal there is, do you like your current culture? Is everyone following the same kind of outlines and rules that you've kind of set up? Or do you need to update that, And we're in this time where there's 4 generations in the workforce and they all communicate completely different and they all have different ways they do things, right?
That's a great point.
I'm a baby boomer. When I started at Harris Bank, literally I was told, I don't pay you to think, I pay you to do the job I hired you to do.
That's that generation, dude.
Yeah, right? Crazy.
Try saying that to somebody that's 22 right now.
Now with the Gen Zers, they won't do anything unless they understand why they're doing it.
Exactly.
You got to tell them why and because. Why you're doing this, Kevin, I need you to do this, report because we need to present it to the board of directors on Tuesday. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, during my time, I don't remember how many times I heard, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
If they had just taken the time to tell them why.
Explain it. Oh yeah. Evolution there's some things that are good about what is transpired.
I agree.
How do you reach, speaking of the 4 generations, what I'm thinking of is there's a lot of underemployed people that are in their 20s. We hear a lot of entitlement. What are your thoughts on those types of stuff, the stereotypes about the Gen Zers? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I want to say is not all Gen Zers are alike. So there is a stereotype, but don't consider everyone that stereotype.
Sure.
So I'll warn everyone of that first, because you learn really quick. I mean, there are some amazing Gen Zers. I live near Princeton, Illinois, and I have a restaurant in town that I've been helping out. And there's this girl that's 23 years old, and she is killing it. Once we put her in the right seat on the bus, and she's killing it, right? And works hard, great work ethic, doesn't expect, entitlement. And part of that was the millennials started that, where, everyone gets a trophy if you show up.
Right.
And so we've started to swing the pendulum the other way there. And I think what I like about the Gen Z is if you understand that they need to know why they're doing something, and if you allow them to have a voice and say, hey, what do you think of that? Or do you understand? Or do you have questions? Or it might be like, hey, Kevin, I need this report by Friday. Can you do that? And you might go, yeah, I can get that done. Great. Now, do you understand what I need for the report? Yeah, you want this, this, and this. Okay, great. Or if you say to me, you know what, Jeff, I don't think I can get that done by Friday. I'm really overburdened here. And I might go, okay, tell me what's going on, because I wouldn't have thought you would have been overburdened, but maybe you are. And what can I do to shift some things for you? Yeah. And that's the communication level that we have to be at with the Gen Zers, is to be very fluid back and forth with them. And one of the other struggles, and this is another idiosyncrasy with Gen Zers, is that they don't like to look people in the eye, right? They look down. They're so used to all the technology. They're on their phones. They're texting. Their faces in the computer.
So true.
Right? And so it takes a little bit to draw them out. So you have to be a little more patient with the Gen Zers. But eventually we get them to a place where they're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So I try to make them a little more involved. Instead of just saying, here's what I need you to do, it's like, let's talk about what I need you to do and why I need you to do it. And it seems to be more responsive.
Now, what size companies are you typically dealing with? Does it vary all over the place?
I've been doing this 4.5 years. I started with SMBs, but lately we're getting large companies. And what we're doing is we're going in and we're working with C-suites, and then we work down a level with what we call the emerging leaders. And that's the next level. So what's happening is a lot of these bigger companies are realizing, look, we want to keep this going. It's a good thing, but at some point, a C-suite level, we're going to start to retire. And so what we want to know is, we like what we've built. We like the culture that we've built. Maybe we need a few tweaks because we got to take into account the generational gaps that have occurred. But these emerging leaders, we want to teach them how to be leaders. The biggest mistake that people make is they put someone in leadership roles and they don't teach them how to be a leader. 38% of all new leaders fail in 18 months because they haven't been taught how to be a leader.
Yeah. Well, because very few leaders know how to teach. I mean, do you see that?
So the funny part about leadership, and this is the first thing I teach people and by the way, we do cohorts in the company. So 4 to 10 people per cohort. And the reason we do that is that then they support each other. When we leave, they've supported each. Now they say, hey, Kevin, what do you think I got to do with this? Right? Or, hey, Jeff, what do you think? How should we? I know we talked about this. I just don't remember how we do it. And one of the biggest struggles is that we work with them is muscle memory. So you're the way you are because of how you went to school, what your teachers were like, what your parents were like, what your friends are like, and what your job's been like, and the bosses you have, right?
Yeah.
Good or bad. Might have been good. I had a wonderful mentor, so this is where I'm at. A lot of people have had very bad bosses.
Unfortunately.
Right? And they know that they don't want to do that. By the way, another quick stat, 79% of everybody that leaves their job leaves because of feeling unappreciated. Only 12% leave for more money.
I didn't know that. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a huge stat. And currently the millennials are the biggest in the workforce. It's like 75% are millennials now, they say. 69% of them feel unprepared to be in leadership roles. So again, huge gaps. And so the part that we like to do with these cohorts, and again, these emerging leaders, is kind of teach them the proper way to deal with things. And one of the first things I teach them is it's not about you. If you go in, it used to be, hey, I'm the boss now, so you do this and you do this because I said so.
Right.
Those days are gone.
Yes, they are.
And the problem is your turnover is going to be extremely high.
Yeah, you're going to spend so much on retraining and retention.
So if you can be a good leader, and what does that mean? That means if you're the leader, you're the boss. When things go right, you give the praise. When things go wrong, you take the blame. Because if they went wrong and you're the boss and you're the leader, then you didn't do something right,
Exactly. Right.
Ultimately, the buck stops with you. When people are having trouble, which is what I used to do with my programmers, I literally would sit down with them because programmers are very A, B, C, D kind of programmers, right?
Yes, they are.
I had that ability to go from A to D. I didn't need to B and C. Okay. And so I was able to help them do workarounds because that's where my brain always worked. But I would sit shoulder to to shoulder with them and we would just brainstorm. Okay, if this isn't working, how about if we tried this way? How about if we tried that way? And all of a sudden they go, yeah, that's it. And then run back to their desk. And, that's being a leader is letting your guys know or your people know that you're with them, that they're not out there alone. And finally, being a leader is showing empathy, telling them they're appreciated, giving them the ability to have a voice and not to feel stupid. I mean, how many times have you been in a meeting, the boss says this, and this, and you're like, you want to say something? But you're like, well, I'm not going to be the only guy in the room saying something. So we work on building those safe zones where people can actually feel comfortable talking. And that comes from the leaders, right? Maybe be, hey, who has an idea? Kevin, tell me, it looks like your brain's going there. Tell me what you're thinking. Right? And almost call you out to a certain degree, right? But then you're like, okay, he called me out. I can do that now.
Yeah.
And I have this safe zone. I did that with a client last night, actually. I had a late night meeting with their team. And we created this safe zone where they could kind of vent for a little bit. But what I did was I said, look, this is not a bitch session. This is a tell me where your struggles are. Now tell me what we can do to fix it. And then let's start hitting some singles so you can start to see that we're making progress to fix some of your struggles. And they were all about that, right? Because bitch sessions amount to nothing. But you let people get things out. And that's another thing being a leader, right? Listening is really key. A lot of times as a leader, someone will say something and then we want to jump in and say, well, let me tell you about, they don't hear you.
Yeah.
When people are kind of anxious and upset, let them just spew it all out. Take notes. Take notes. And then come back and say, okay, let's talk about A point and then B and then C. And by doing that, they know they were heard. They've gotten everything out that was on their mind. So now they can hear you in response.
Now, Jeff, are they people telling you who they think their new leaders are going to be, or are you looking at the company, interviewing people, and then determining to these people who you think their leaders should be? Or do you do both?
No, I've done it both ways, but more than not, it's they think this is the right people that are coming up. These are the people that they want to train. They've been around enough where they kind of feel comfortable with them. And so then I kind of go in and, we start actually 2 6-month courses.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah. Can you explain the type of courses, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's 2 6-month courses, and it's based on my new book that's coming out called The New Leadership Landscape.
I wanted to get into both books if we could, but go ahead.
And so The New Leadership Landscape really walks people through step by step how to go about building leadership. And it all starts with trust. Because if you don't have trust with your people, right? And so what does that mean? Well, that means when you tell somebody you're going to have them something by Friday, like if I say, Kevin, I'll have that report, you're my employee, but you're like, hey, Jeff, can you help me do this? Yep, I'll get to that and I'll have it to you by Friday. Make sure you have it by Friday. And as the boss, sometimes you get caught up on things. And then I would go to you, hey, Kevin, I know I said I'd have it by 12 by Friday. I had this meeting that came up. I will have it still by 5. I just want you to know. Communication, huge in that process, right? Yeah. Those things build trust. Letting them know that you got their back, right? I used to have one woman that I was consulting for, and she would throw her people under the bus left and right.
Oh, God. That's terrible.
Yeah, right? And so I actually had to fire her as a client because she would not. She said she was willing to be coachable, but she turned out not to be. I was
going to bring that up to you too. Like when people say, hey, this is the person I want you to train, do you ever have to go back to them like, look, you can't put this person in this position? Do you have to do that when you're consulting?
Yeah, and it's my responsibility to do that because I don't want to, go in and say, I did my best. This is not working. And it's all about being open to change.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone thinks, well, I know best. And do you really though? I mean, and look, I'm 65 now. I don't know best. I know how to ask the right questions.
Right.
And then hopefully that brings me to the right answer.
Right.
But ultimately, do I have all the right answers? Can I definitively say this is the way you should do it because I'm right? No. Right.
Right.
I don't have the crystal ball, but we got to teach people that. And the other thing that I love to teach these guys, and I love to get them when they're younger, is that we all lead with emotion, right? That's one of the biggest struggles, our emotional intelligence. Yeah. And so what I love to do is tell people, look, the first thing is it's not about you, so remove the emotion. The second thing is when you're in a situation and you have to make a decision, you need to take a step back, quote unquote, pull the chute, take a breath, feel in control, so you're at and see where you want to go, so that you can make a strategic decision based on what you're looking for out of the outcomes. Example, someone comes into your office and they're all upset because of something that happened, right? So A, you let them vent. B, if it's out of their nature to be like this, the next question is, so what's going on? Because this is not normally you.
Yeah.
And it might have been they got in a fight with their spouse,
Yep.
the kid threw up on them before they left the house, the dog crapped in the living room, whatever. It's all these things, right?
Mhm.
And then they came in and someone said something wrong and set them up. If we don't ask, we don't know.
Exactly.
Right? And so to assume that it's an attack on you is, I'm not exaggerating, 90% not the problem usually.
Yeah.
We take it as an attack on us.
Mhm.
And so then we respond emotionally. And then it gets to be this whole toxic conversation. So if we can just take that step back, take a deep breath, and just kind of understand the situation, and then say, okay, well, ultimately, where am I trying to get here? Right. Another great example, I had a client that called me 2 years ago, and he's down in Atlanta, and he was subletting his office to this other gentleman. And so my client had a business development person that was working for him part-time. And the guy in the back office says, hey, do you mind if I hire her for the other half since you only are paying her for half time? She goes, sure. Well, she was doing a great job for the subletter, and he ended up offering her a full-time job without talking to my client. So now my client's pissed. He calls me. It was like 3 p.m, and I'm cutting my grass in the Nashville area, and I turn the lawnmower off, and I'm talking to him, and he is fuming, right? And he's dropping F-bombs left and right. And I want this other guy out of my office, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, how are you going to do it? He goes, I'm going to go back there and tell him to get his. And I go, no, we're not going to do that. I let him cool down a little bit, and I said, okay, ultimately, what are you looking for? He goes, I want him out of my office. I go, fine. Then go tell him that. Don't yell at him. Don't get belligerent. Don't bring up anything. Just tell him, I want you out of my office. Is that all I got to do? I go, try it. He calls me back, no exaggeration, 3 minutes later. He goes, well, that was easy. I go, what happened? He goes, I walked back there and said, this isn't working. I need you to remove yourself from the office. He said, by when? I said, Friday. He said, done. That was the whole conversation, right?
Wow.
We took the emotion out. He could probably ended up in jail. He was so mad, right?
Yeah.
And he was back there just, ready to punch the guy out.
Yeah.
But he got what he wanted. And ultimately, my lesson for him was figure out what you want to get. And then how do you do it without the emotion? Because emotion is going to cause all kinds of ruffles.
Yeah.
So as a leader, if you can do that, and there's times when we're going to be emotional, don't get me wrong, but try to keep it in check as much as possible and make your decisions not based on the emotion, but based on the outcome.
Exactly. Now on the 6-month course, so how often are you meeting with them? Tell the listeners, are you meeting with them once a week? How extensive are you meeting with them?
Sure. So we meet twice a month for 90-ish minutes. And I say ish because sometimes they go 2 hours. And so what we do is we introduce a new topic. They're very interactive. I go around the room, virtual room, a regular room. I ask questions. I get everybody involved. So everyone has to answer certain questions because I want everyone to be involved. And it helps me identify who the introverts are and who the extroverts are.
Sure.
Who's going to dominate the conversation. So those are things that you learn. And so then I kind of do a little role playing and offer them opportunities to participate, and then I send them away with homework. And then the next time we meet again, another 90-ish minutes, we kind of go over the homework, and then I'll pick people and say, okay, based on what you've learned, tell me a situation that you think this would have helped you in, and then we role play that.
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
And the great part about role playing is, so here's the problem: we can go to school, like when people say, oh, I'm going to this workshop on leadership, I go, how long is it? And they go, oh, it's like a half a day. And I go, why waste your time? And I say that in a nice way, but the reality is that it's muscle memory. You got to retrain how you do things.
Yeah.
A half a day workshop is going to give you all kinds of things, but then you're going to go right back to what you know.
Exactly. Right? You're going to forget it.
This way I'm forcing them to follow the things that we're teaching them.
Yeah, that's great.
And so then now next time they get into a situation, they'll be like, oh, wait, I remember when Jeff taught us this. Okay, this is how I'm going to approach this.
Yeah.
Right. And a completely different, way of teaching. And it works very well. I mean, we're just incredible feedback from that and how people have grown leaps and bounds. And the reason I do 2 6-month programs is that it really takes the first 6 months for people to understand change and to feel the change and to start to, even with my clients, when I'm working with C-level people, literally almost every time it's around the 6-month mark where all of a sudden they're like, hey, I want to tell you what just happened. I know we've been working on this. And right before we got on the call, I got this person walked into my office and I got kind of upset about it. And then I thought, no, wait, we've been working on this. So I just took a deep breath and I kind of, asked them some questions and realized, oh, it wasn't what I thought about it at all. It was something completely different. And it worked really great. And I just got a smile from ear to ear because it's like, yes.
Of course you did. Now, how would you separate the 2 6 months? So the first 6 months is focused on what? And the second 6 months is focused on?
It's basically a continual process. It's a year course in a sense, right?
Oh, it's a year course. Okay.
Yeah, I break it into 6 months in case they want to take a break in the middle. Like, let's say we do January to June, and then we take July and August off, right?
Okay.
So, I don't want it to be consistent, so we can break it up. And I can break it into, after 3 months, we take a month break if they want, things like that. But it's a process that we go through. We go through things like building trust and your why. What is your personal why? We all know Simon Sinek talks about that. And so we've put together this whole worksheet to figure out your own why. I was teaching one of the classes, and I actually had the owner of the company say, I didn't have no clue how to figure out my why. And I was like, that is a great point. So we created a worksheet. And then I gave him the worksheet, and he was able to figure out his why. And he goes, I would have never guessed this, right?
So you had a worksheet where you just asked a bunch of questions for them to get to their why. Yeah. Oh, wow.
And it just helps go through that. But anyway, it's things like how to deal with conflict, how to communicate better. It's all those things.
How long ago did you write your first books? I see that you've written 2 books.
Oh, I'd say, the first one was Taking Your Business to New Heights. And that's when I was focusing a little more on business coaching. And so that one's really my story. If you read through it, I talk a lot about free drive. I talk a lot about different things experiences that I've had. I interviewed a couple different people and talk about their stories. Karen Kyman is amazing in there, where she took over cell tower business because her husband passed away, and how she had to keep that going for another 15 or 18 years after he passed away. And here's a woman in a man's world, and what she did to make that all work, and how she just trusted that it would work. And so her story is really amazing. But the whole goal of that one was to and it started out by me writing blogs. And then someone looked at me and goes, man, this would make a great book. And I thought, wow, that would. So I started expanding on the blogs, and it became chapters and books. And, it was kind of fun to do it. And all of us, there's.
When did you write that?
4 years ago.
4? Okay.
Yeah, 2021, I think I launched that one. Yeah.
What made you want to write the second book?
When I started getting into leadership development, I really felt that there was these huge gaps. You can tell I have a lot of statistics, and I've looked up a lot of things.
Yes.
And I thought the way that we need to teach leadership has to change. And that's why I call it the new leadership landscape. Again, Gen Zers want to know why and because. And I think it's important, even though I'm a baby boomer, I've always looked at things and said, look, we need to change, because if we don't, we're dinosaurs. We need to change with the world. Those people that say I can't change are doomed.
No such thing not to be able to change.
I know, right?
No such thing.
You can change, you just choose not to. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so then I feel sorry for you, because there's so much,
big time.
Yeah, there's so much this world has to offer if you're willing to look at it from different lenses. And so I really thought that I wanted to get my message out. And so what I did was I wrote all my different thoughts about how I would build trust, and how I would do your why, and how I would deal with conflict and emotional intelligence. But what I did in the book is I backed it up with real world stories. So like Sam Altman, when we talk about trust and leadership, I'm sure your listeners have heard this, but Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, right? I think it was a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, probably now, around November, the board, he wanted to protect the AI, and the board wanted to make money off of it. And he was like, no, we got to be careful. And they fired him, right? And that was on a Thursday. By Friday, of course, Microsoft had hired him. If he wanted a job. But here's the amazing story, is that he has like 765 employees, and don't quote me on the number, but somewhere around 740 signed a letter that basically said, either you bring him back or we're all walking.
Wow. I did not know that. That's incredible.
So they fired the board and hired him back on Monday. Right?
Wow.
But that's the kind of leadership.
Yeah.
It's so outstanding, right? But they all trust Sam, right? And so that's all built on the trust. And Microsoft,
based on the way he has treated them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Microsoft, for a while, if you worked at Microsoft, it was a cutthroat. Like, you were out for yourself, right? And then the current CEO, Sanjay, I think is how I say that, he went in there and changed the whole culture, where we all work together and we all work as one. And now Microsoft is worth more than they've ever been. Bill Gates is loving life to the, every day. But, these are real world stories. And then what we do is, so we back everything up that I'm saying with real world stories. And then what I do is I give you pull the shoot actions. And so I give you things to look at, things to do, so that you can actually start to learn how to do this, how to build trust. If we ask questions, answer the question. So it's kind of hey, here's the topic. Here's why we believe what we believe. Now let's start to apply it. And that's what the book is about. And so it was easy for me to put a whole program around the book for leadership development. And then we do what we call pull the chute action items. And those are we ask questions that we want you to answer. We give you things that you can do to help you get better at it and just kind of work you through it. And so it made it easy for me. It made it easy for me to leadership development program around the book then. And so that's what we actually do with the different aspects of it. So the book is really the catalyst for it. The program is built around the book. And so, and then we just go a lot more in depth in the programming. You know, when we're actually in person doing it, we really kind of, and you know, I've had years of interviewing people and small groups and, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, I really try to work with people. When I see somebody's quiet, I kind of like to pick on them a little bit, just because it's like, okay, they're afraid to say something, but I feel like they really want to say something. Right?
Yeah.
So I try to make them as interactive as possible. But, you know, the goal is for everyone to learn, right? And to share their stories and share their struggles and get them to be comfortable with each other. And they might all work together, but they might not be totally comfortable, right?
Right.
And so getting them comfortable to use them as a support group is the way we like to do it.
Are you teaching people to teach what you're teaching underneath you, or are you the one doing all the coaching? How does your organization work?
I'm based in Chicago. We have an office in Nova Scotia, Canada. We have an office in London, UK. I have people in Nashville, 2 people in Nashville that can help as well. And so, you know, we're kind of growing the organization. We're following the philosophies of Pull the Chute as a centric goal, you know, really based on the leadership book, everyone and the program development that we've designed. Everyone's teaching the same thing, but they all have their own little idiosyncrasies of the way. I don't want it to be robotic. I want it to be them.
Sure.
And so we allow that. And so it's great. And so, yeah, we're trying to go international. I have Bob Cotton in the UK. He's wonderful. He's really been an integral part of the growth of Pull the Chute. And then John Zettler is out of Nova Scotia, and John has a company called Fair Winds Training. John does a lot of the training part, and then he hands off the coaching part. And so I help him. I do coaching of some of his clients and things like that, which work out great. But then John and I also did a collaboration, and we call the Executive Coach Network. The idea behind that is you get training and coaching for executives. And that's what we're looking to do.
And so with the podcast that you do, what's the purpose of your podcast?
Yeah, great question. It started out by helping business owners realize everyone's going through this to a certain degree, right? So we started out to be small to medium-sized businesses. But now we're getting into much bigger corporations. We just interviewed the CEO of Butterball Farms. Recently, and there's a couple of big tech companies that we're doing. And, you know, we're getting a lot of bigger company CEOs. We did a construction company out of Chicago. We interviewed the CEO there. And so, you know, we're getting these multi-million / maybe $billion companies. That are really having a voice and what made them successful. So the idea behind it is twofold. One is we really talk a lot about leadership and how important that is. You know, our tagline is grow your people, grow your company. If you think you can do it all, you're sorely mistaken.
Yes.
And 90% of the time when we go in and coach, the first thing we do is we get the leader to get out of their own way and to learn how to delegate and then trust that delegation. In the beginning, it takes a little more work because you got to work with them, right? To do it the way you want it. But then you have to be open to say, this is the way I do it. And the person does it, says, would it be okay if I did it this way? And let me tell you why. And then it's up to the owner to go, well, I do it that way because of this. And if you can solve that problem, then okay. But otherwise, I'm concerned about that. You know, but again, we want this back and forth thing, right? We don't want the hard-nosed, no, you must do it this way. We want them to back off and then go back to them and say, hey, if I could get you something to do your job better, what would it be? And as long as it's within reason, get it for them. Now they own that job. Right? And so those are things that we try to teach them from that standpoint. And it's just, for me, it's a blast. You know, I just have a lot of fun and everyone follows that same philosophy. And, you know, John and I are way on the same page. Bob and I are way on the same page. My co-host, Jenna Landry, she's the one down in Nashville. She's big in with communication. So she's got a whole book on communication that she's done. And then I got a couple of small people, and I say small, lesser experienced people, but I coach them myself. And so I trust that they're going to do it the right way. And so that's the fun part.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, where do people find you? How do they find you to seek out your advice?
Sure. Obviously, the podcast, which is on all the major outlets, you know, Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that. You can go to pullthechute.net, and that's pull the chute with a C. So for some reason, people want to put an S in there sometimes. It's like a parachute. So pullthechute.net, and you can go there and, you know, request a discovery call. We can go there. Jeff at pullthechute.net gets you there. Look up Jeff Cecil on LinkedIn. Pull the Shoot _ on Instagram, or Jeff Cecil on Instagram. Same with Facebook. So we're all over the place. You can go to Amazon.com and look up both of the books. We haven't actually done a full release party for the new book, but it's up there right now. So if you want to check it out, The New Leadership Landscape, Redefining True Leadership, please do. The last name is Sesol, by the way. We were talking about that before the show a little bit. You could probably tell, and I maybe want to apologize to your listeners, but I get passionate about this stuff. And, I just have a tendency to just let my passion go.
Why would that be an apology?
Well, I kind of talked a lot.
Oh, that's the point. They're here to see you. They're not here to listen to me. I usually have to guide people along. You did it like as if, like you actually have a podcast. You made it easier for me. Okay. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you, Jeff. And, listeners, we rarely get someone who's actually bought and sold companies like he has. Most of the people haven't had the ability to do that yet. And so that being able to hear from a perspective of somebody that's done that, and then has been doing it, has been an entrepreneur as long as you have. That isn't someone that we get to speak to very often either. So I really loved your time today, Jeff Cecil, and we live in the same area.
Yeah.
And I've appreciated the time thoroughly. I love your energy and your advice. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, Kevin.